Hi, everybody. It's Jason with Parallel Reality back here just to go over some stuff that I wanted to talk about today. So first, hope everybody had a happy new year. Hope everybody is safe and everybody is doing well. So I'm recording this on New Year's Day. It'll probably come out tomorrow on January 2nd. So something that I've been looking at for a while here, and you can see it on the screen cap. So if you just look up at your screen, you'll see. And, of course, the name of this particular video is Signs That You're in a Cult, and it's not MAGA. But this particular thing I wanted to go over, so a little bit of background on this first, is that I don't remember when I saw this article that I have screen capped here for the first time. It was definitely years ago. The article itself is from June 18th of 2014. So again, I don't remember when I saw this, but I remember reading it, and it's a pretty profound article, and it's linked in the description below, along with the next article that we're going to go over as well. But I looked up signs that you're in a cult, because you hear it on both sides of the political spectrum. The left is saying the right's in a cult, the right is saying the left is in a cult. You definitely hear it a lot more from the left towards the right. So it was one of those things a few months ago that I kind of said, before I started the whole YouTube thing, I decided, I'm going to look this up and I want to see what everybody says about this sort of thing. Like, am I in a cult? Because again, I am someone who is definitely on the right side of the political spectrum. So I wanted to be like, if I'm in a cult, I want to know. So the articles that I have here, the first one that we're going to go over, the one that specifically is called The 7 Signs That You're in a Cult, is from The Atlantic, which anybody on the right listening to this right now probably just rolled their eyes and is like, why them? For anybody that's a normie that doesn't know, The Atlantic these days is extremely far to the left. I don't think I'd be out of bounds in saying they are a far left publication. Excuse me, that's staying in. I'm not editing that out. But that's why I picked this article, is because I wanted to see what someone on the left would have to say. But after rereading the article, which is has a story around it. So someone in The Atlantic wrote a story around the 7 signs that you're in a cult, because if you read the article, you see that they had something happen to a friend of theirs. But the signs that you're in a cult they used were from the founder of IHOP, a man named Mike Bickle, who is definitely on the right. So while this article is from The Atlantic, which even at the time that this article was written back in 2014 was on the left, the author is using essentially a right-winger's signs that you're in a cult. So we're going to do that first, and then the other article I have is from Medium, which is 10 signs you're in a cult. But you'll notice pretty quick, even though Medium is on the left, that there's a lot of similarities between these two things. So I specifically didn't want articles that were like written after the whole Trump was elected and TDS became a thing, and people just being like, we're going to write an article saying that you're in a cult and tailor it to what people specifically believe on like the MAGA side, because they like to say that MAGA is a cult, and it isn't, and we'll get to that. But I wanted something that was going to be neutral and just say, this is what people said. And I figured the best way to go about that was I have someone on the right saying something, someone on the left saying something, and we'll go through those. So first thing is this Atlantic article here that you see screen capped above. Okay, so the 7 signs that you are in a cult, according to the founder of IHOP. Again, his name is Mike Bickle. He's an evangelical Christian, just so you know the background of him. Says, number 1 is opposing critical thinking. Now, I think we can all say that I really should say for every single one of the items that we're going to go over, that there are people on both sides of the political spectrum that are going to hit all of these points, okay? So we can certainly say to some degree there's going to be people on each side, but I'm saying overall, who does this fit more, okay? So opposing critical thinking, you definitely see people on the right that are more, I want to talk to you about, your ideas, and I want to understand what you're thinking, whereas people on the left tend to be more just, I don't want to debate you, okay? Or they debate in bad faith. Okay, I've seen many debates with leftists specifically, not liberals, but leftists, so people on the far left of the political spectrum that come into debates in bad faith. Like, their whole point isn't to learn something, it's to just go, I'm going to win this and I'm going to make you feel like crap for talking about what you're talking about. I'm going to try to shame you, okay? Whereas, again, people on the right are like, I want to know what your ideas are. I mean, go listen to any right-wing pundit, and they're like, I want to know about this. And even I'd say this extends to the liberal left. So I'm saying people that are probably like center left, even to just full on liberals, are probably more open to wanting to talk about, just general ideas to see what people are thinking. Okay, so I'd say the opposing critical thinking is something that more applies to people on the left than it does on the right. And of course, if you get over to the far right, the 12 of them that actually exist, they're going to be the same thing. They're going to oppose critical thinking as well. Okay, so, but again, I think this is something that, generally speaking, it's something that points more towards someone on the left opposing critical thinking than someone on the right. And you can blame all the leftists for that. Number 2 that you see up there is isolating members and penalizing them for leaving. I mean, Jesus H, how many times have you seen this happen to someone on the left? Okay, when someone on the left goes, hey, wait a minute, what about, and then they say something that goes against the official narrative, that they essentially get ostracized from their community. You see this in the alphabet community all the time, when people are just like, hey, what about, or something like that. I mean, you can think there's a million people that you can go out there and find of people that were, or probably still are on the left, that questioned the orthodoxy of their side. And then they'll say like, I lost all my friends. Okay. You don't see that on the right. I don't know of a single example that's happened of someone on the right. So I'd say that, yeah, this applies to people on the left far more than it does people on the right. Number 3, emphasizing special doctrines outside Scripture. So, of course, we're hitting the religious thing now because a religious man came up with the list. But I think that does matter because part of the Atlantic article says, like, how to know if you're in a religious group, or how to tell the difference between being in a religious group or a cult. And so that's why the religion part comes into it. But I think this is also something that applies very much to people on the left, because people on the right tend, the people that are going to be, there's a bigger chance that you're going to be religious if you're on the right. And people on the right tend to stick with, biblical or scripture type things. So, I mean, obviously Orthodox Jews, stuff like that, sticking to like the Torah and all that stuff. I'm a bad Jew. I don't remember exactly what it is, so I apologize. But people on the left, their God is government. It's Big Daddy government, and that's their thing that they stick to. They don't believe in God, and I think that's a huge part of the reason why society is the way it is today. And again, as someone who is not religious in any way, shape, or form, I think God is very much missing from our discourse and from our life. And if God was brought back into it, I think things would be a lot better than they actually are. Number 4, seeking inappropriate loyalty to their leaders. This one is the one of these 7 that I could say probably applies pretty equally to both sides of the spectrum. You see a lot of people that are just Trump sycophants. If you are, fine. I'm not. Again, I don't mind the guy. I'm just kind of like, okay, fine. He's a guy that's running for president, but I'm not one of those people that's like, yes, that person, and you have my loyalty forever, good sir, sort of thing. But you see it on the left as well. You see people who are just like, Biden's the greatest. And even though the man can't, put a coherent thought together or anything. Same with Kamala. You see it with her as well. So, but again, I think this is the one that you could rightly apply equally to both sides of the political spectrum. So right now, the left is winning, or I guess in this case, we'd probably say rather losing this fight 3-1. I'd say 4-1 here because they get all 4 and the right gets 1. So it's 4-1 left. Number 5, dishonoring the family unit. This is obviously a left-wing thing. This does not apply at all to anybody on the right. Okay? The left, you can see example after example of them saying that they want to destroy the family unit. It's everywhere in every doctrine that they have. You see them making, they essentially want bad things, things that aren't family-based to be the norm. Okay? And I'm talking about like these polyamorous relationships. I remember seeing a video of, there was a girl that had 4 boyfriends, okay, and she was pregnant, and I don't know if they even knew who the father was, but they're like, we're a family. Like, that's not a family. You have a mom and a dad, okay? You need both of those, you need one of each, okay? Stuff like that. You see, again, the alphabet people, that they're very much trying to, and I'm talking about the ones that are hard on that side of the political spectrum, not them in general, but like GLAAD and stuff like that, saying like, they're trying to essentially get rid of the nuclear family. And you can see it from these far left activists. You can find quotes from them all over the place about this. So this absolutely applies only to the left. So it's 5-1. And here we come to the more religious ones again. So you can kind of say like maybe it's geared towards specifically like the religious things, but I think these do count. Number 6 is crossing biblical boundaries of behavior versus sexual purity and personal ownership. Again, like number 5, this one is almost exclusively a left-wing thing. And again, there's people on the right that do this as well. Not saying it's everybody. There's people on the left that follow this. Okay, but it's more likely to happen on the left side of the political spectrum, that their behaviors would be things that in the Bible would be considered blasphemous and sacrilegious, whereas people on the right are more likely not to do stuff like that. And yet again, even though I'm not a religious person, I tend to think of like, my morality tends to be, is this bad? Is this something that would I end up in hell as a Jew? Translated, that would be Miami Beach. Just because it's hot. Miami's fine. Don't have a problem with Miami. It's just a joke. But the crossing biblical boundaries of behavior is definitely a left-wing thing. So it's 6-1 left. And then separation from the church, obviously a left-wing thing as well. Okay, that you see them trying to actually actively destroy churches. Okay, so I mean, this very much says to me that if you're in a cult, it's definitely something that more applies by far to the left. I mean, on here you'd say all 7 of these things apply to folks on the left, whereas there's only one, which is seeking inappropriate loyalty to their leaders, may be someone on the right side of the political spectrum. So I'll go with 7-1 on this. The left wins, or again, loses this particular argument. So I'd say if you're on the left and you're looking at this, you should probably go, oh God, maybe it isn't the other side that's the cult. But to be fair, let's go see what the left-wing site has to say. So the other article that is linked below is from Medium, which is probably left-leaning, I'd say. I wouldn't necessarily say far on left. They're definitely not far left. And they have 10 signs that you're probably in a cult. And I'm going to read some more of this because as you notice with the Atlantic article, you're not seeing any description on here. It was just me blabbering about stuff. But on the Medium article here, it does actually have some description, and I'll add my commentary too. So we're going to go over the 10 of those. So starting with number 1, it says the leader is the ultimate authority. If you're not allowed to criticize your leader, even if the criticism is true, you're probably in a cult. And we know there's that old adage, this is me adding here, that if you want to see who's in charge in society, see who you're not allowed, or see who you're not allowed to make fun of, well, that would definitely be people on the left. I mean, people rip on Trump all the time, and we're going to use him as the focal point for the leadership of the right. And it just kind of rolls off his back, and he's just like, all right. And he makes fun of himself, too. I mean, listen to any of his speeches. He's practically, tearing himself a new butthole half the time. So I'd say this is definitely something that also would be probably a little more applying to people on the left than the right. I wouldn't necessarily say there's a big gap there, but I would definitely say it's 1-0 here for people on the left. Number 2 on their list is the group suppresses skepticism. If you're only allowed to study your organization through approved sources, you're probably in a cult. This is definitely something on the left. You can see the left with just dozens, if not hundreds, if not even thousands of articles since Trump became president. And even before that, I would think for sure that they tend to have a circular firing squad when it comes to things. They tend to go someone at the USA Today, I'm just thinking of left-wing sources here. This is just a made-up scenario. Someone at the USA Today finds out something, and they go, this happened, and then someone at NBC goes, okay, that person from that site, they're on our side, they reported it, so that must be a thing. And then they just keep taking each other's stuff and saying this is true because all the people on our side said it. And remember, if anybody goes, hey, wait a minute now, and I mean, look at the whole beer bug scenario, not to use the word for it because I don't want to get struck or anything like that. Yeah, there you go. I mean, that's the whole thing, is the group suppresses skepticism. That's definitely a left-wing thing. You cannot move away from the orthodoxy. Your wrong think is not allowed. And it even says under that, if you look at that article, if you pull it up, it says criticism is forbidden. So yeah, that would definitely be a left-wing thing. And here's a similarity, number 3 here, with something on the Atlantic article, which says the group delegitimizes former members. And I don't need to explain that one much more. We know that, as we discussed on the Atlantic article, this is definitely a left-wing thing. So we're going to move on to number 4. It says the group is paranoid about the outside world. If your group insists the end of the world is near, you're probably in a cult. Gee, who does this sound like? I think of the climate people right off the bat. Okay, and that's a whole nother thing to talk about. But definitely this is a left-wing thing. People on the right don't think the end of the world is near. There might be some people that might say, okay, but by and large, this is a very left-wing sort of thing. So I'm not even going to entertain the thought that this is someone on the right. So this is definitely on the left. So we're hitting all the spots here on the left side. Okay, and the right, there's maybe somewhere in there. Number 5, the group relies on shame cycles. If you need your group in order to feel worthy, loved, or sufficient, you're probably in a cult. Once again, this is a left-wing thing, okay? And you see people all the time on the left that are like, tell me I'm great. Like, and I think here specifically, think of what's it called? The body positivity movement. And that's a whole nother thing I can talk about as someone who has a dad bod who actually had gastric bypass surgery a few years ago. So I might have some insight into that. And that's something I can definitely talk about later on. But this reminds me of those people, is just these people who lead very, very unhealthy lives. And then they post pictures. And when someone says like, that's disgusting, and then other people come in and are like, just like, no, you're awesome. You're great. That, keep doing what you're doing, even though you're going to die in a decade from some disease like diabetes or something, and these people go and tell me you love me and stuff like that. I mean, these are people that just want to seek attention. So yeah, you're in a cult. Okay. I'm not talking about just the fat shaming people, but that falls something almost exclusively on the left side of the political spectrum. So congratulations, left. You are sweeping the list here. Number 6, the leader is above the law. If you're held to a different moral standard, specifically in regard to sex, you're probably in a cult. And I'm sure that means the sex part relates to men as opposed to women, not actual, intercourse. But this is something on the left too. You can see how many times just in the last few years have you seen people on the left get away with things. And the leader, specifically Joe Biden, we know that, like we knew a few years ago, we've known actually for a long time, even longer than that this man is corrupt. He's deeply corrupt. His son is corrupt as hell as well. And nothing happens to him. Nothing happens to Joe Biden at all. He's allowed to just walk free. Whereas Trump basically breathes wrong in the morning and they're like, oh, he's got to be impeached, or we got to go after him for this or that and this and that. So yeah, this is definitely a left-wing thing as well. So, and also, I'm going to mention this now because I just noticed it in a further description of number 6 here. It says, sexual grooming of members is common. This is a left-wing thing, okay? We know that that's going on with kids, and the alphabet cult is trying to do that, and it's not everybody in the alphabet cult, okay? Very much not, but there are people that do that, okay? So just letting you know that. Number 7, the group uses quote, thought reform, end quote, methods. So the group uses thought reform methods. If your serious questions are answered with cliches, you're probably in a cult. How many times have you listened to someone on the left and it's like buzzword after buzzword after buzzword? That's what this is. The right doesn't do that. Okay. I mean, yeah, there probably are people that on the right that occasionally do it, but this is definitely a left-wing thing, which is just buzzword after buzzword after buzzword. So sorry, again, you're in a cult. Number 8, the group is elitist. It says if your group is the solution for all the world's problems, you're probably in a cult. Do I need to explain this any further? This is definitely the left. Okay, I'm not even going to go into it any further because of that. Number 9, there is no financial transparency. If you're not allowed to know what the group does with their money, you're probably in a cult. Well, I think we know that this is also something on the left. You could look at the whole Sam Bankman-Fried thing with whatever the crypto thing is. I don't know anything about crypto. So it does say here as well that a group that refuses to disclose its finances is a huge red flag. We've seen that a bunch of times with Democrats and stuff like that. It says ethical organizations have nothing to hide. Okay, and it says cult leaders tend to live opulently while their followers are required to make financial sacrifices. Okay, so yeah, this is very much a left-wing thing as well. So on the left, sorry guys, we're almost done here, and you guys are at 9 to probably maybe 1 on this list for combined between all of them for someone on the right. And number 10, this one I'd say is probably more everybody. So we can say this kind of falls to both. It says the group performs secret rites. If there are secret teachings or ceremonies you didn't discover until after you joined, you're probably in a cult. Yeah, I that could be either. That I don't think that really matters. I couldn't really think of anything that would fit to this specifically for either group, but I think that this isn't probably really, kind of just one group, one side of the spectrum over the other. This could apply to anybody. So there we have it. We have the Atlantic article with 7 signs and this Medium article with 10 signs. And I'd say overwhelmingly that the left falls into being in a cult. The right doesn't value almost all of everything on either list, the left wing or the right wing list. And the left, every single thing on both of these applies to them. So if you're on the left and you're listening to this, I hope there's a part of you that goes, geez, maybe I need to think about this again. Doesn't mean you need to be a conservative. It just means you probably should look at this and go, maybe there's something I need to change here, or maybe I should get the word out and say to my people, like, guys, something's a bit off about this. Okay, so that's all I wanted to go over today, is just letting people out there know that if you're on the left side of the political spectrum, it's probably you that's in a cult. It's not MAGA. It's not people on the right. And if you have even the most basic understanding of signs of being in a cult like this, again, I don't have any further understanding than the stuff I've read to you, then you should probably realize that you need to probably make some changes in your life. So that was it. Again, like, share, and subscribe. I thank you for listening. I hope, again, everybody had a great new year, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.